We'd like to warmly welcome and thank you all for attending the Microsoft 365 SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. Today is July 15th, 2021. My name is David Warner with Catapult Systems and a PnP team member, and I will be acting as your host in place of Patrick Rogers. Our agenda for today is going to cover the latest updates on SharePoint Framework. We're going to see some patterns and practices updates covering PnPJS, CLI for Microsoft 365, reusable PnP SPFx controls, and SPFx search web parts. Then, of course, we're going to take a look at the new community samples and everyone's favorite picture time with Together mode. The true stars of the day, though, are our presenters, Julie Turner and Derek Cash-Peterson from Praxis Consulting. They're going to discuss building COVID attestation solution for Microsoft Teams and Viva connections with SPFx. And, of course, our favorite Vesa Yuvinen from Microsoft, building SharePoint Framework solutions with Microsoft Teams Toolkit V2. Let's begin by talking a little bit about the opportunities available to everyone in the community in terms of contributing to our PnP community. The first is, of course, doing a demo, an SPFx demo on this call or the other PnP call. You can host and show a web part, an application customizer, provisioning, anything you create, we would like to see. We'd love to see collaboration in the community, love to see you willing to share with the community all of the creations that you develop. So we invite you to apply and reach out to anyone on the PnP team to do that. You could also cover PnPJS, as you see, CLI for Microsoft 365, reusable controls, Yeoman generator. You can contribute on GitHub if you'd like to just help upgrade a sample or update some of the documentation. You can report issues and submit pull requests. You can ask questions and answer questions as well. We are an inclusive and open source community, so we invite you to do anything and everything that assists with others in the community. We also invite feedback. So certainly, as Patrick says, we love good feedback, but we want to hear the constructive feedback as well. Are you looking for something specific that you feel would help the community? Any documentation needs? Anything that you feel might need some additional assistance? And we certainly want to hear what you'd like to share with the community. How do you get involved? Well, we have a plethora of links. First is the developer videos and the community videos. You can access those by going to the aka.ms M365 dev YouTube or aka.ms/M365PnP/videos. These are a collection of videos from Microsoft and the community that are going to assist you in learning more about all of the Microsoft 365 technologies. And it's a little more fun and interactive for you to be able to watch it via video. So please don't hesitate to enjoy those videos. We also have a number of open source repositories, github.com SharePoint, github.com PnP, Office Dev, Microsoft Graph. So we invite everyone to visit those and utilize the benefits that are available to you. If you're looking to learn more, contribute, understand how certain things work within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, we have a ton of sample galleries. Team samples, SPFx samples, Power Platform samples, SPFx extensions, list formatting, oh my. Don't hesitate to go to any one of these repos and sample galleries. They are there for you to utilize within your organization, use to learn, contribute back, upgrade. We invite any and all pull requests, so please don't hesitate to take advantage of those that are available to you. Everything rolls up to the open source initiative and samples via the aka.ms/M365PnP link. So visit that there. You can take advantage of all of the resources and tools available to you under the Microsoft 365 Patterns and Practices community umbrella. We love our community calls, but of course we know that this time is good as a summer break for those in the community. So for the rest of this month in August, we will be taking off the monthly calls. During that process, those calls are going to be transferred into weekly Tuesday calls. Vesa, did you want to communicate to this one specifically? I know this is typically your area.
Yeah, so basically what we're doing here is that, like David said, we want to cancel the monthly community calls are now on a summer break because we want to give people slightly more time on the summer, also including presenters and not just the attendees. And anyway, the attendance is clearly lower on summertime. And then what we wanted to do is get a holistic Microsoft 365 platform call. So rather than making you choose between, is it a Teams, is it a SharePoint, is it a Graph call, we're going to introduce this generic call, which is basically for all of those things together. And it's split between the demos on those different topics. So basically, after the summer, we're moving to this mode starting from 31st of August, where we have a engineering call on Tuesdays and community driven call on Thursdays. So that's kind of how we're thinking this. Then some of the old monthly community calls will still remain independent because they choose to do so, at least for now. But Tuesday, Thursday, consistently every single week.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Vesa. And that Tuesday call is available as a download ICS file already. So if you go to the aka.ms/m365PnP, you'll be able to see the community calls. That Tuesday is already listed. You can download the ICS and get it on your calendar so that you can make sure that you're able to join us each and every week. As an open source community, we invite you to take advantage of and contribute back, but we also understand that there are times when there may be hurdles that prevent you. Even though the desire is there, you may be a little unsure of how to accomplish certain things, such as interfacing with GitHub or tips and tricks around getting to become a presenter. Sharing is Caring is an initiative that provides you hands-on, interactive guidance in live sessions that are not recorded, safe space opportunities to ask all kinds of questions. We cover topics from first-time contributor, community docs, using SPFx samples, being a first-time presenter, maturity model. We also have one of the more popular sessions that's been taking place monthly, our Ask Me Anythings. We just had our Teams development earlier this week, which is fantastic. It gives you a personal and upfront opportunity to ask questions of the experts that cover these initiatives within PnP and within Microsoft. We've got coming up in September a Power Platform session that you can register for now. It's going to include April Dunham and Hugo Bernier, both Microsoft employees that cover those sample galleries. So we invite you to take advantage of these, again, all completely free, aka.ms/sharing is caring. We also love to celebrate all of the amazing work that you are doing in the community. So we have announced our PnP Recognition Program. This is a digital recognition program that is powered by Credly. Credly is the exact same engine that loads and runs the certification badges for Microsoft. So when you register for this program, and we need you to register so that we can align who you are with your contributions, we are going to be able to start celebrating you in a more formal and official way with these badges. So we're excited for it. Again, we're starting to process those June contributions now, so you're going to start seeing some of those come out via email. Please, 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 aka.ms/m365PnP-recognition. We could not be more excited. There's going to be initiatives and campaigns coming up, limited edition badges, special Parker badges, all kinds of fun for us to get more involved and collaborate together in the community. And we want to celebrate and recognize all the hard work you all do because it is fantastic. So please don't hesitate to register for that. All right, let's talk about the SharePoint framework, latest from SharePoint Engineering. Vesa, I believe you will cover this.
Yep, absolutely. So one thing which we announced yesterday, was it yesterday? Today is Thursday. It was yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. So we published a blog post related on the Inspire, which is happening this week. Inspire is our global partner conference. And as part of those announcements, we announced the upcoming Viva Connections public developer preview. So in Build 2021, in May, we announced a private preview where you needed to sign up for getting access on the Viva Connections developer areas and functionalities. As that was insanely popular, so we had more than 600 people signing up on that form, we basically are forced to switch to this public developer preview model so that we can actually give access on all of the people these goodies and capabilities of building things. The developer preview will be part of a SharePoint Framework 1.13 beta release. So this is a preview, which is basically means a beta, not production ready yet, and 1.13 beta is coming out as well. So it's basically bundled on the same thing. And this is going to be happening within, how would I put this in the right way? It's going to happen by end of July with matter of days, but I'm not going to give you an exact. We do have a ETA right now, but I don't want to share that date if we slip it for a 1 day or a 2 day, but it's happening within days. So most likely next week is safe to say. Now, if you think about SharePoint Framework in general, Viva Connections is a big focus area for us in the SharePoint Framework, and that's coming to preview as part of the 1.13 beta. Again, is planned to get released next week. I think that's safe to say. Other areas where we are investing is the Microsoft Teams development improvements, because we consider the baseline of SharePoint Framework for the portals and pages and the SharePoint side to be pretty well covered. So we're kind of investing also on the Microsoft Teams side, so you can more easily reuse the same skills and tooling, not only in SharePoint, not only in Microsoft Viva connections, but also in Microsoft Teams. And then we're looking into doing a significant revamp on the supportability model. What I mean with that one is that have much more active engagement with the community in forums and all of that stuff starting this autumn. So all of that is in the pipeline. And of course, not forgetting about the store modernization. So SharePoint Store has not given that much investments within the past years, but we're going to do a full modernization of the store pretty soon. Actually, within upcoming weeks, you should be starting to see an updated store in the targeted release tenants, and then gradually we will roll out additional store functionality improvements related on SharePoint as well. All of this is basically gradually crawling out throughout the autumn this calendar year. So a lot of investments, a lot of people working behind the scenes, tens and tens of people making things now better, which is really, really good. And also, please remember to keep the feedback coming. We need to understand what's needed to make your life successful. But throwing it back to you, David.
Thank you, Vesa. Lots of exciting features coming soon. Can't wait. All right, let's talk about PnPJS Client-side Libraries. Julie?
Hey, thanks, David. So the 2.7.0 released on July 9th. It was just a small maintenance release. We had a few documentation updates and just updated packages. So small release, but let's keep our cadence going. We like to do that monthly release so that it's predictable. We have been focusing mostly on V3. So we're deep in the reworking of some of those new features for V3. If you are interested in learning more, there is a V3 branch. It still says but ugly, and it is a little bit ugly still, but you can definitely peek in and see what work we have ongoing, and sort of get a preview of what might be coming. If you want to know the list of objectives we have, there's a pinned issue, issued 1636 in the repo that has a listing of all our plans with links to discussion areas so that you can review all the ideas that we have for V3. And also, if you are interested in helping with V3, let us know. We're getting very close to being able to open up so that other people can contribute to V3 to get it across the finish line. And hopefully that will happen soon. I just want to reiterate that we did implement a new GitHub action to lock closed issues. The idea behind that is that if you have a related issue, we'd love to see you open a new issue and then reference that closed issue so that we can keep them unique and keep all the issues needing feedback right up at the top of the list. And also, don't forget to follow us, M365 PnPJS on Twitter. And like I said, direct all your feedback to that issues list. That's the best way to get the assistance that you might need. That's all I have for right now. Thanks, David. Back to you.
Thanks, Julie. And that's a lot of rabbits, so we don't want to fight all those rabbits. The revenge of the rabbits is in full force. CLI for Microsoft 365. Well, there's a new preview, 3.12. It's coming with retrieving OneDrive sites, retrieving planner plans and buckets, adding planner buckets, and extended retrieving sites with info about groups. You can always try the latest beta using the npm install at Next, and you can run it in Docker. We've seen lately that's available natively in the Azure Cloud Shell. And you can also try Preview v4. So this gives you an opportunity to prepare for new versions coming soon. It gets you excited and involved so you're ready to share it with others and utilize it in your organization. You've got some opportunities to install that there via npm and Docker as well. More information is available at aka.ms/CLI-M365. Next up is the SPFx reusable components. We have reusable SPFx controls. We see the React controls 2.8.0 for SPFx 1.11 and 3.2.1 for SPFx 1.12.1. Includes a whole lot of cool features: dynamic form, location picker, fast serve support. We've seen a lot of that lately. That's been very popular. People picker, list picker, various fixes and enhancements, and of course the property controls, the sibling of that for our property controls, 2.7.0 covering SPFx 1.11 and 3.2.0 covering SPFx 1.12.1 with fast serve support again, and a number of various fixes. A whole lot of contributions here by everyone that is contributing. Thank you all. We appreciate all of that. Please don't hesitate to keep contributing. We really appreciate all of that. You can get more information at the GitHub links below or Twitter, M365 PnP Controls. Next up is PnP Modern Search. You're able to build modern search experiences with flexible web parts. We know this is one of our favorites. V4.3.0 is a July release. It's got Dutch translation, a proper fix for custom helpers, web components across the web parts, and a persona card fix. And then we also see the release of 3.21.0 fixes paging, vertical synonyms, previews. And so please take advantage. This is one of the coolest collection of web parts in the PnP family, aka.ms/PnP-search. Next up is our PnP SPFx samples, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Bernier.
Thank you. So if you're starting a new development task with SPFx, you could obviously build everything from scratch on your own, or you could leverage the awesome samples that were built by the community. So we have two GitHub repositories, the SPFx web parts and the SPFx extensions, where you can find samples that are contributed by the community, and they're ranging from just simple concepts like how do I use one of those PnP controls, for example, or full solutions and utilities. So we welcome contributions from everyone, and these are the contributions for the last 2 weeks, and this is crazy. I could barely fit them on a slide. So from the Joaos on the SPFx extensions, we have a new follow document extension by Joao Mendes. It allows you to actually receive notifications from selected lists and libraries. And then we have an update to the analytics web part, which supports Google Analytics v4 by Joao Ferreira. So those are on the extension side. On the web part side, we have an update to the calendar by Mohamed Amer, who fixes basically something that will disable the ability to edit recurrent series if the user doesn't have access to it. We have a new tiles web part by Omar El Anis, which allows you to actually create these cool tiles web parts, and you can fully customize that. The membership updater by Nick Brown has been updated to SPFx 1.12.1. And then Ari Gunawan updated the Facebook page social plugin to SPFx 1.12.1 as well. We have a new hero web part by Omar El Anis, which allows you to actually create these cool hero web parts like the out-of-the-box web part, but customizable. And then we have an update to the page contributors by Ari Gunawan, who updated it to SPFx 1.12.1. Finally, we have a private library/folder manager web part that allows you to actually collaborate with people and create separate sections where you can actually create private folders and things like that. It's amazing to see the number of updates that we have that are now using SPFx 1.12.1. It definitely makes it easy for anyone new to the community who wants to get started with the samples, because they can just download the latest version of SPFx and the proper version of Node and get started quickly. Thanks everyone for your contributions. I look forward to seeing more contribution. Back to you, not Patrick.
Thank you, Hugo. And again, excellent work, everyone. Please keep it up. Love to see all the contributions. You are all amazing. All right, our favorite time, optional picture time. Vesa, did you want to capture this, or would you like me to?
I can do that. So let me actually share my screen and together mode. Come on, you can do that. And starting. And I think this is a fine format now. Let's wait for the seats to fill in. I'm already recording, and we still have a few free seats on the table. Bill, that's actually really good. You look like the one drawing, so that's really, really good. So,
Bill's Home Alone.
Yeah, oh, that's true. Home Alone as well. Cool. I think we are full. Is that the 50? I guess we're not getting any more people. So let's do some hands waving, everybody. So thank you for joining. Hopefully by end of this year, we will actually meet each other physically. That would be awesome. But we'll see how it goes. If nothing else, we'll keep on having our community live online as well. Thank you, everybody. Cheers. Cool. Let's get back on the
steal the screen share again. All right, our demos are going to begin now. Let's give our attention to Julie and Derek on the topic building COVID attestation solution for Microsoft Teams and Viva connections with SPFx.
We're going to present today an application that we built to do COVID attestations. So for when you sort of go into your doctor's office, or if you're going back into the office. So we'll be showing that example for you today. I'm Derek Cash-Peterson. I'm presenting today with Julie Turner. We both work at Simpraxis Consulting in Boston. And so the first question really is, why did we go ahead and build this? And the story here is we've all sort of seen this over the last year and a half through COVID that, folks are asking for information when you go to the doctor's office or when you go, to drop your kid off at school or what have you. And they're asking questions about, have you been exposed? What is your potential risk profile? So as companies and countries are starting to open their offices back up, we wanted to provide a way through Teams to allow that to happen. We wanted to be able to track who is in the office at any given time. And we also wanted to provide a way for administrators or HR folks or human resources folks to notify people if they've potentially been exposed. So it's that contact tracing piece. So what we did was we built a Teams personal app that sits inside on the rail. And if it's not there by default, you can just go in and click the button. Now, for your average user, they're going to log in and they'll only see self check-in. And we've created these questions so they can come in and they can select, say, what office they're in. We've got Japan, we've got Boston. So, they say whether or not they've had a fever, what is their temperature. These are all configurable, and I'll show that in a couple of minutes. Sort of generic COVID-related symptom questions. And then when they're done, they save the response. And they can submit this once a day. And at this point, their job is done. This person is at home, they're getting ready to go into the office. So they fill out the form, and when they're done, they click submit, and then they're on their way. They can go to the office. Now, for me, I'm at the front desk, and I can see whoever is in the office. I can see all the folks here that have checked in or in the process of checking in. So we built this dashboard. It lets you flick through the different dates. So you can see the different people's names on the left. You can see what office that they've decided to check into. You can also see the date and the time that they've submitted their form. And the green indicates whether or not they've checked into the office or not, and then the check-in time that they've checked in at the office. So you can see Thor Ironsides is the person that just checked in. He hasn't checked in yet, so he came to the office. I'm going to check him in. I'm going to review all of these details with him, what he submitted in that form. There's no real personal information in here. So we didn't sort of, there's not really HIPAA or in the US requirements there. So the front desk person can just go ahead and check them in and say, okay, these all look good. Maybe ask them to verify that. And then they can check the user into the office. And at this point now, it's assumed that they go to their office, go to their meeting, whatever it is they have to do. So because they're at the front desk person also has the ability to check in themselves, but they also have the ability to check in a guest. So say there's a guest here to see Thor. The front desk person can now come in, they can enter that name, they can enter the location, and they can fill out the form on behalf of that person. Now, one thing that's a little bit different is that because this is a guest user, and I just ran through this verbally with the guest user, we check them in automatically. So there's no question because we just ran through it. We don't need to double check everything with them. The other thing that you'll notice is that in the icons on the left-hand side, if any of these people were online, their presence would be notified here. So they would have the Teams, whatever the appropriate color is, red, yellow, green, whatever for Teams. So that's the experience for, say, the front desk person. But now what if you are an HR person and you need to notify potential employees of a possible exposure? By default, this shows the past 2 weeks. There's search capabilities that lets you filter this down to a specific set of days, and you can search by days. You can search by office. So you can check, just the folks that have registered into the Boston office. And you can also check by person as well. So in this instance, we're going to check and see, what I was doing. And, I was in the Tokyo office on the 9th. So if there was a potential exposure there from me, there was nobody else who had registered, obviously, in the Tokyo office that day because it was closed. But if we look at someone like Carter, Carter was in the Boston office. And so now you can see all of these people were in the Boston office at the same time as me. So there's the ability to go in and contact those folks and let them know that they might have possibly been exposed. We also wanted to make you able to administer this through Teams as well. So there's a SharePoint backend for this, and we're surfacing a list of locations. So you can come in here and we can add a new location. So we're going to add one for Chicago in Illinois. And this is just a SharePoint text field, so you can name it whatever naming convention you want to use. And we also provide the ability to customize those questions. So this is a SharePoint list. And if we want to add a new question, we click the new button. And we enter in the title for the question. Now, the way we built this, this supports either yes or no questions or text-based questions. So if you saw in the original form, they were either radio buttons or it was like an open text field for enter your temperature. We also support the ability to reorder the questions. So this one's going to be order 800, which is at the end of the list. And you can edit these just right inside of Teams. Now, if the user goes in and the next person that comes in to register, so say the front desk person is registering a guest, you'll notice that at the end of the page, you'll see the question that I just added, and now the office is in there as well. And so all of this sits inside a Teams app, a Teams personal app. Now, we also built an ACE for the adaptive card extensions. And for that, I'm going to hand that over to Julie.
Cool. Thank you, Derek. Okay, so now what we're going to show is the ACE, as Derek pointed out, the adaptive card extension that we can build with the SharePoint Framework 1.13, which Vesa covered at the beginning when he was talking about the SharePoint Framework updates. So we went ahead and built an ACE for the COVID app. And so we can see here that the ACE is on the dashboard, and I have a check-in button that gives me that form. So I can go through as a user and fill out my form and then just go ahead and submit it. And so that's a really quick way that I can get right to the form from my dashboard. That could be in the mobile experience or whatever. And then the configuration itself has me pointing. I have one configuration to point to the site collection where my lists are stored. So that's how that ACE gets set up. And then further, when you click on the ACE itself, it deep links into Teams and takes us right to that COVID app in the private app that loads in Teams. So I can get there and you can see that I submitted my entry in and I'm good to go. So it's a quick, easy extension, but let's look at the code a little bit because I think that's more interesting for people to see. So let me bring up my code now. There we go. Okay, so this adaptive card extension is another addition to the whole solution package that we built. So when we create the solution, originally we had the web parts for the COVID app that you saw, and that COVID admin app is that entire solution that Derek just demoed. So after that, we added an additional adaptive card extension, and that comes through with some templates. So what we're going to start with is showing the adaptive card extension main entry point. And so this loads up the extension, and we have an on init function here. And this is the thing that starts immediately after the page loads. And what we're doing in here is setting up all of the things that we need so that we know, so that the service knows where to get its data, where to write its data, and how to work with the data. And we're just reusing everything we had already built in the web part. So this entry here, this CS entry, is the service from the main web part. So if I go down into the web part itself and I go into the services, that's that COVID service right there. So I'm just reusing the same code base and extending that to give me this functionality. So we go through a knit process and we have some things to decide, like the home site, because the personal app doesn't have a home. It's not like a Teams tab where the home for the solution is in the SharePoint site where the team is. The personal app sort of floats without a home. So we needed to tell the COVID ACE where its home is, so that so PnPJS, which is what I'm using to go get the data from the lists, knows where to get that data. So I'm pointing to where that home is. So that's one of the configurations of the ACE. And then we're registering the card in the quick view, which I'm going to go up. We're initializing PnPJS, and then we have some setup. We need to know who the user is and what their display name is, and checking whether that user is already checked in for today. We need to do that. And initializing our service, and then setting up our state. So our state for the entire ACE, so React has this concept of state, and the ACE has a similar concept of state. So the entire ACE has a state, and we're going to set up whether the user can check in or not. We've determined that, what the user's ID is and what their display name is, and now we can share that with the quick view and the card view. So the card view is the first thing that we load, and that was the card on the main screen. It's super simple. It has a title and a description. There's not a ton to it. And so we're just using the primary text card view. There's 3 different views for the card view. One's an image view, one's a primary text view, and one's this basic view. And so we're just saying, okay, we're going to set up the card, and here's the data for the card. So this function runs and it sets up the data. So all we're doing is checking, has the user checked in already, and did the service initialize properly? Assuming that the user can check in, it'll show a string of text that says, hey, you can check in. And if they've already checked in, then it's just going to show that they've already checked in and that they can't do anything. And that will determine whether or not that check-in button shows at the bottom. But the card will always deep link. And so that's what this last function here is. The on card selection sets up an external link, and that external link is a deep link in the Teams to the entity that this is. So that number right there, that GUID right there, is the GUID for the web part. And you can find that down in the web parts manifest. So if you look in the web parts manifest, that ID is the ID for that deep link. So let me shut that. Hold on a second, come back. So that's where that deep link URL comes from. Okay, so that's how the card view gets rendered. So assuming that the user can then check in, they have that button, and we've registered that we have a quick view. And the quick view is where we can be a little more dynamic and have a little bit more control of what things look like. So in this case, we're going to build the quick view, and let me just close this so we can have a little more space. And actually, let me close this so we have a little more space. So the quick view is where we got the questions. And so now if you recall, the questions are dynamic. We have a list of questions, so they're dynamically driven and they can be changed at any time. So we want to be able to dynamically create that quick view, which isn't necessarily super intuitive, because the way the quick view normally works is you have a template and you have the data, and the two merge together and they display the quick view. And if you know what the template's going to be, then in the quick view template JSON file, you can build the template, putting in markers for where your data should merge in, and you're all done. The problem with this particular quick view is that those questions are dynamic. We don't know how many they are, so we don't know how many spots to save for questions, and we don't know what type of question. Is it a text question? Is it a yes/no question? We didn't really know. That's all dynamic. So the way we went about solving this problem is by creating a baseline template. So you can see in here that I have the JSON string for the quick view ACE card template. It has a body section that has a sort of a header. Then it has a text block for the office. We knew it was going to have office. That was going to be one of the fixed things. So I have a text block for the office. And then for the office string, the label office, excuse me. And then I have an input for the choices for the different offices. Those are dynamic. So we wanted to set up a structure to be able to inject those choices into the template. Then we have another container, and in those container, I know I'm going to have a set of items. This is the container that all those questions are going to be injected into. And when I go back to the code, I'll show you how I attained that. But we have this container. It has an items array that's just empty at the moment, but we'll get to that. And then last but not least, we have the action set, which has the submit button and the cancel button. And we can handle those as well. And I'll show you that in a minute. So the only other thing I want to point out is that we have this body. It's an array, and it has a number of items in it. So the 0th place item is this, the 1st place item is this, the 2nd place item is that. I'm pointing it out because we're going to use that information when we come back to the quick view. So let's go back to the quick view, and we've set up some data, types up at the top. Let's get into the meat of it. So we have the data section here where we're going to create the data that is going to be merged into the template. I'm going to skip that for a minute and come down to the template. So normally what we would just do is we'd say, hey, my template is in this file and I just want to return the template. So we'd literally do line 72 and then we'd do line 94, and that would be all you'd need to do because your template would be configured already to have all the placeholders for all the data that you're going to push into it. In our instance, we need to dynamically change that template on the fly. So we're going to load the template in, but then we're going to modify that template as we go along. So in the 0th placeholder of that body array, remember I pointed out that the body has a bunch of objects in that array. I'm going to set a display name for the quick view. And then I'm going to get all the locations out of our service. I'm going to load those into the location options. And so that can be pushed into the template for, so we have the first one, which is the label for the office. So I'm just going to have a string that defines that label that I want for the office. And then the second option item in there was the choice list for the locations. So I'm going to set the choices to those location options that I loaded from the service, which loads them from the SharePoint list. And I'm also going to say the value of that is this location value for, that's the label for the data label that's going to merge into that. And then I need to build the questions array. And so those are going to go into that items, which was the 3rd or 4th, depending on how if you're 0 counting or not. I tend to 0 count. The 4th item in our body array is that items list. And so I'm going to walk through all the questions that I've loaded from my service. And depending on whether it was a yes/no question or it was a text, and since I knew I had only one type, so I just have a simple if here, I'm going to create a new yes/no answer and push it into this item array. And so I've created this constructor, and if we go to the definition of that, you can see that I knew what I needed for the values for that based on what the template needed to look like. The JSON object for a checkbox needed to have these values in it. So I built a constructor that allowed me to do that. So then all I have to do is say, push a new yes/no answer, and I'm going to pass in the question's ID, the title, and the data placeholder for that question for the yes/no. And the text box has 2 pieces to it. So I needed to push on the text box that has the label, and then the text box that is the answer field below it. And again, I'm putting on for that text box with the answer, I need to point out where the data is, what's the merging point, and what the ID is for the question, because I'll need that later. And then, as I said, I push that into the template. So now at this point on line 90, my template is now complete. I dynamically altered it in memory so that it would have the questions that I needed, and that quick view would look the way I need it to look. So now when I return my template, it's all modified the way I need to. And now the solution merges that template with the data. So what I needed for the data is to get answers. So I have all my questions. I needed to set all my answers to blank so that they didn't have any answers so people could finish filling it out, right? And then I return the answers, and then the solution merges the data, i.e. the blank values, with the template and displays that quick view on the screen for the user to fill out. Now, if you recall, at the bottom, we had a submit button and a cancel button. And so the way we handle that is with a feature called on action. And so on action means when you click one of those buttons, it launches this function. This function, then I can say, okay, did they hit submit? If they did, then I'm going to go look at the data and I'm going to create an entry that I'm going to use our service to submit their answer, all their answers, into a new line item in the self check-in list in the root site collection. So basically all I'm doing is creating a new title for the list item, and then I'm building the check-in form so that it matches my list. And then I call my service, which I'm using in the main web part, that same service, and I'm just passing in the check-in item with all the data filled out based on what the user entered. So I'm basically dynamically creating that form in a place that's super accessible to the user in the dashboard view that they'll have. They'll have that on mobile, or it could be right on the home page. It's super right in front of the user. Now, granted, if they're in Teams at home or Teams on their mobile phone, they'll be able to get to the COVID app that way as well. But this might be the place that they start their day once these things start GAing and once people start implementing the new Viva desktop, which was the new name for the home site personal app. They might start there instead. And so to be able to have that card and go, oh, right, yeah, I got to check in today, and have that right front and center makes their day go a little faster, right? And that's what we want to have. Instead of them having to click all around, remember to do all those things, it becomes front and center. So that is an overview of how the ACE was built. Vesta, did you have any comments you wanted? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, can we go back on the ACE, just on the
Absolutely.
UX of the ACE? Just to recap what we saw in the code and coming back on, so what we saw in the code, this is how it looks like. So just to be clear, so 1.13, SharePoint Framework 1.13, which is going to be released within a week when we are recording this community call, for those who are watching the video recording. That's the one which will include then the support for creating these cards. And these cards are designed for the primarily mobile first experience to be exposed in the Teams mobile experience. And you built them with SPFx. Now, do you have a video on one more time showing the checking process in here?
Yeah, I can let me just run that again. There you go. So we're clicking the check-in, and there's our dynamic form. So that's what it then looks like.
Yep.
And
that would be rendered actually in a native mobile experience if you are using a mobile when you're exposing or clicking that button in the mobile experience, whenever we get all of the functionalities rolled out as part of the Viva connections. And you build all of that using SPFx, so you have all of the goodies within the SPFx, accessing data, single sign-on, all of that's available. Anything else what you wanted to, are we missing something, Julie?
I don't think so. I think we went pretty deep this time, so hopefully everybody followed along. I'll answer questions after if Derek hasn't. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I've been answering some of the ones in the chat. One thing I just want to point out is we are going to be releasing this as a sample for folks to see how we did this. And that you can, when we release that, you can also just download the SPPKG file and it will provision itself with sample data. Oh, so you can get it up and running in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, in your like if you have a dev tenant or whatever and you want to see, you can just go download the SPPKG, which is pre-built and in the deployment folder, upload it into your tenant app catalog, get it provisioned, sync to Teams so that it's in your Teams and in the personal app on the left-hand rail, and then go ahead and as soon as you run it the first time, it will configure itself. It'll give you an option to configure itself with default demo data, or you can start from scratch. Either way, so that's a really good point.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Julie. Really awesome stuff. And it like I said, the sample will be available as part of the 1.13 beta release. So you'll get access. Technically, it's available already in the GitHub, but you can't actually run npm install because the 1.13 is not yet out. So Julie and Derek has been part of the private preview, so they have been having access on the bits.
Right,
now,
and that's why we did the SPPKG file, so that you can install even if you don't have the preview bits, like Vesa just said, and even if you weren't in the preview program and you don't have the dashboard, you can still download the SPPKG file, install it in your tenant, and you'll get the Teams app. You just won't be able to put the ACE, even though it's in the package, you won't be able to put it anywhere in your tenant because you don't have the bits to be able to create a dashboard to put it on there.
Until we as a Microsoft release those functionalities. So, but we're getting there one step at a time. Now, we have 12 minutes, so I'm going to take roughly 10 minutes to quickly do a kind of a quick introduction on the Teams Toolkit v2 and concentrating on the SharePoint Framework side of the house. So let's talk about this one. Teams Toolkit version 2 is in preview status, and it actually supports creation of the UX layer, especially tabs using SharePoint Framework. Now, we are working together with Teams Engineering and Visual Studio Developer Division with the tools people to make this experience more optimal. So right now, what you're seeing today is quite limited, but I also want to get the feedback in the chat on what you would like to see and how things are looking, and hopefully we'll get people interested on testing this as well. So you can actually report ideas and input and feedback for the Visual Studio organization as well. Now, before we go to the actual demo and how it actually works, I just briefly going to take 2 minutes to talk about the opportunity and why we are doing this. So, of course, we have 145 million daily active users in the Microsoft Teams. We have more than 200 million monthly active users in SharePoint, and we have more than tens of millions of monthly active users in SharePoint using SharePoint Framework. So there's tens of millions of people who are using already SPFx SharePoint Framework components in SharePoint. So, and people are writing tens of thousands of components in every single month. So we're seeing a massive usage on SharePoint Framework. And so people want to write components using SharePoint Framework. So why wouldn't we then extend the SharePoint Framework to be the extensibility model for Microsoft Teams? As you saw within the previous demos and during the community demos, there are a lot of capabilities what you can build already with SPFx. And now we're improving that with the Teams Toolkit v2 and looking into further improvements in the future as well. Now, just a quick recap on the SharePoint Framework. Of course, a lot of the people in this call are familiar with this one, but it is really the easiest way to build your enterprise solutions in Microsoft 365. It has automatic single sign-on, automatic hosting. You don't have to worry about anything. The hosting is done by SharePoint, even though you would be actually using it in Microsoft Teams or in Microsoft Viva. It has a consistent dev experience, and it's an industry standard tooling. It's not about SharePoint isms. You don't need to understand feature framework or XMLs or JSONs or whatever. It's just web stack development, TypeScript and Node. That's why it has been so popular. And what we're doing right now is that we are further extending SharePoint Framework to have additional shapes. So you've seen today the card shape, which is the adaptive card, dynamic adaptive card shape, and there's additional shapes available as well for Microsoft Teams and then for the SharePoint. Now, the Teams Toolkit v2 will have a native SharePoint Framework integration support, and the team is looking a lot of feedback from the SharePoint developers on what would be actually needed. And even though maybe they can't address that feedback within the version 2, they might address that feedback in the version 2.1, 2.2 to version 3, and so on. But basically what that means is that you can install the Microsoft Teams Toolkit, and you can choose to use SharePoint Framework as the UX layer to implement your user interface for Microsoft Teams. Now, this is slightly different experience, and I'm going to show that in a second, than using just the SharePoint Framework Yeoman generator. And we're working with the Visual Studio team to get it more integrated and all of that. You are using exactly the same tooling. You're still using Gallop, you're still using Node.js and all of that. But the experience is a bit different because we are creating the project from a different, let's say, location. Let's actually move in to have a quick look on how this actually works in practice. First of all, where can you actually get it? So you can find it from the Visual Studio Marketplace. Typically, you wouldn't actually come to this page through a browser. You would come to this page using the extension view in the Visual Studio Code, but I'm just going to call this out just in case in here. And if you would have time, and that would be highly, highly, highly requested, we would love to get more, let's say, ideas and issues and reports in this GitHub repo. So this is the location where we would like to get suggestions, ideas, and feature requests related on SharePoint Framework in the Microsoft Teams Toolkit version 2.0. And maybe you think that, hey, they should know already, so I'm not going to actually suggest X and Y and Z. Please do. It might be that the person who is actually focusing on addressing the issue list is not aware of something what we discussed within the community goal. So please, 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 let people know what is needed. Because everything what we do in Microsoft is for your benefit. So we want our tooling to be the best tooling in the world for you. So rather, we don't want to dictate you to use bad tooling. We want to create the best possible tooling. So you choose to use that tool because it helps you. Okay. Now, how do we actually get this installed? It's quite simply. Let me go to Visual Studio Code. In my extensions, I already installed that. So if I go to the Teams or find the Teams in the extensions in the Visual Studio Code, VS Code, you can actually find it. This is basically the same, pretty much the same information which is in the marketplace listing, and you can just enable that to be available in the computer. When that has been done, the latest version, by the way, at the time is 2.2, still in preview. You'll actually get this Teams Toolkit available in the left menu. You can actually configure that to be optionally available, all of that like normally in Visual Studio Code. And then from here, we provide additional guidance, additional starting points. So first of all, I've already signed into the Azure and also already signed into my dev tenant or test tenant. So I'm not going to sign in, but it's basically asking you to sign into those environments so it can perform automatic operations, registrations, deployments to make your life as easy as possible. So really, really cool stuff as well. And then you can easily access documentation, guidance, all of that from here as well. So it's kind of making it really easy for you to get started and creating the project. Let's create a new project and see how it actually works in practice. So creating a new project, it's going to ask me in here in the top section. Let's actually zoom in a bit. Here we go. One more. There we go. Create a new Microsoft Teams application or start from a sample. Right now, we do not have SharePoint Framework samples available as a starting point. Should we? Open question. Let us know, and we could actually absolutely include a sample to be available from. We do have a lot of samples, like, we have hundreds and hundreds of samples available for SharePoint Framework. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select the Create a New Teams app, and I'm going to choose the tab because that's the most that's the supported SPFx implementation right now in the Teams Toolkit. You can combine SPFx with other options as well, which is kind of cool. So you can have a bot as a simple separate solution under the same solution structure. So you can easily move between the bot and the backend code like Azure Function and the tab within the solution structure. So I'm going to choose the tab. I'm going to choose that the hosting type is SharePoint Framework. Technically, hosting is Microsoft 365, not really SharePoint Framework, but anyway, so terminology thing. And because I'm a web stack developer, this is the most natural way for me to implement things because, hey, it's TypeScript, or I can native vanilla TypeScript, or it might be a React. So I can choose whatever the framework in the same way as with SharePoint Framework, Yeoman Generator. I can choose, is it a vanilla JavaScript as vanilla TypeScript, or is it a React TypeScript implementation? So let's see, I will select React. It's going to ask me the name of the things. Let's call this React call demo, so we can identify that. It's going to ask me the description, which the Yeoman generators would be asking as well. It's going to ask me what is the implementation type. Of course, it's TypeScript, because why not? And then it's going to ask me where I'm going to actually store the code. Let's select that folder. And it's going to ask me the application name. Let's call this SPFx call demo. So I can actually show one more cool thing. I will press enter, and that basically is provisioning the solution. So now I have the solution structure here. I can basically say that my SPFx solution is included in my solution structure. This is basically a, how would I put it? Teams Toolkit v2 specific structures. Then there's the VS Code information. And then in my solution, currently I only have a SPFx solution, which only has currently one web part inside of it, and it has some set of default settings available. For example, the supported host has been already by default set to be NS Teams tabs and Teams personal application. Now, as part of the guidance, we'll also include the README file where we then provide the minimal path to awesome. So it will make sure that you have the right solutions, right versions, and everything else available. And then you are able to start using the automation which is available in the Teams Toolkit. So let me zoom a bit away. So I will see the Teams Toolkit on the left menu. And I can basically modify the manifest in here. Of course, I can see the manifest. I can get to the manifest. I can modify that. I can modify the images. I can adjust the settings. When that's actually done, I can validate the app manifest file, and it's basically going to do a live validation, and it's going to tell me if something is wrong with the validation and all of that. I can build the Teams package, which is basically going to create the manifest file, and I can provision that to the cloud. And what that means is that's basically taking that solution package and it's installing that directly to the Teams tenant. So now if I go back in my developer portal in Teams, I can see, if we refresh, we should be able to see our React call demo, which was just actually installed to this tenant. So we're using the dev teams Microsoft.com, which is the developer portal for Microsoft Teams, to know all of the solutions which are available. And now I can then, on top of this, right now, if I would install or want to install the solution to the tenant, I would click deploy to the cloud, which unfortunately right now is not doing anything automatically. So, and of course, that would be good feedback. Can we automate this? So the Teams Toolkit automatic deployment is not currently supported for a SharePoint Framework solution. It will basically now install, run the npm install, and then package the SharePoint package and ask you to put it in the tenant app catalog. But after that, you can basically then test the solution directly in Teams and do the thing. So it's a slightly different experience than the Yeoman generator, but we would love to get more feedback on what's needed, how is it working, try to hands-on labs and tutorials which are available, provide feedback us for the Office Dev Teams FX repo, and so we know, and the Visual Studio organization knows how to adjust this experience to better match on your expectation. Really cool stuff for sure. But that's it for my side, and we are running out of time as well. So let's flip back on David, I think, on your screen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vesa. Excellent demos today. Thank you, Julie, Vesa, and Derek. I think it's important to note for those watching the video afterwards, again, all of these tools and resources are available to you for free. That COVID attestation solution is amazing and available to you at no cost. So please don't hesitate to take advantage. The recording of this will be available within 24 hours at aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. Our next call for SPFx is July 29th, same bat channel, same bat time, 7 a.m. Pacific. Our M365 general development call will be next week, July 22nd at 7 a.m. You can always get access to all of the developer community calls via these links here. Of course, you can always as well go to aka.ms/m365pnp to access all of the links we've showed you today. But in addition to that, we'd like to thank everyone for attending. And again, thank you to Vesa, Julie, and Derek for the demos. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend and the rest of your week. Thank you again.